Hello everyone and welcome back to my Warhammer 40k guides. I am Brady and today I would like to give you the top 8 players and army list from the recent Las Vegas Open. And for those of you who are new to Warhammer 40k competitive, or maybe just unaware, the Las Vegas Open is the largest 40k tournament in the world, and this year had over 700 players sign up, with over 600 actually participating. So the best of the best usually attend this event, and this year we saw a ton of top players attend with some very unique and cool lists. There was some decent variety in the top 8 this year, which I am very happy to see as well. Not as much as some people might hope for, but personally I think it was still decent. And I have a feeling that I'm going to get some comments from people after seeing these top 8 lists saying that the top 8 really isn't that diverse at all, but when you compare it to previous editions of Warhammer 40k, it's actually pretty damn diverse, especially when it comes down to the lists themselves. At least they aren't all copy and paste net lists. Before 8th edition, the game was honestly never really that balanced when it came to competitive play, and we saw a lot of the same lists over and over and over again, while 8th edition is in my opinion the golden age of Warhammer 40k and is much more balanced. Is 8th edition 40k perfect? Of course not, but it's the best we've ever had, so I'm happy to see it. So with that said, let's not waste any more time and let's just jump right into what you guys and gals came here for, and that is the top 8 players and their army lists from the Las Vegas Open. So for this video, I'm going to start with the higher placed lists first and then go down from there instead of the normal format that I use for my top 10 videos. So for first place, Brandon Grant playing Astra Militarum with a Knight Castellan ally. So to give the basics of it, this is the Castellan list. So when most people say the Castellan list, this is the list they're referring to. The Knight Castellan does fit into other Imperium armies and builds as well, but this is the main version that started it all. It's a Catachan brigade to get a ton of bodies and also a ton of command points to feed the Castellan to make it overly efficient for its points. The Castellan by itself is a great unit on its own, but it is a godlike unit when it is being spoon-fed a ton of command points to dump on its awesome stratagems. I've seen some debate about this in my comments and on Warhammer 40k forums, with some people stating that the Castellan is broken and others saying that the Castellan is fine but the way soup works is broken, and I've seen some valid arguments from both sides. Where I personally fit into this argument, I'm on the side that soup in its current form is actually fine. It allows armies like Imperium and Chaos to actually compete with the Xenos armies, and I lean more towards the Castellan being a bit too overloaded. Sure, the argument that it's not overloaded if you can't spend 1,000,000 command points on it is valid by all means, but my argument is that if you take a brigade of guard to fund literally anything else the Imperium has to offer, can you think of anything that becomes as overbearing as the Castellan? We could talk about this all day, and to be honest, this is a topic for a video of its own. I already have a video talking about the Castellan if you want to check that out, but for now, let's move on with this video. The rest of the list is a Catachan Guard Brigade, which offers a ton of bodies for board control through the utility of orders. And also they offer anti-infantry with the buffs from the characters, and again, more orders. The Hellhounds are, in my opinion, the best fast attack choice, which makes them easy picks for the brigade. They offer a bit of anti-infantry and also anti-negative to hit modifiers. They are also pretty fast and can be used to block paths of enemy units like Knights. The Rough Riders are the second cheapest fast attack choice and offer the option of outflanking, which is good, or even for tying up enemy vehicles. And in the heavy support slots, we have a unit of mortars, which is extremely common in guard lists, and 2 wyverns. The wyverns make use of the new Emperor's Wrath Artillery Specialist attachment and offer a ton of damage or some utility in slowing the enemy infantry down. So in my opinion, it's a great formation that you should be using if you play guard yourself. I'm not going to analyze this list too much in this video since I've already done so in another video where I go over Brandon's list, so if you want a better explanation of how everything works and why I think Brandon went with the units that he did, then check out that video. I will have a link for it in the description. Second place, Alex Harrison playing Ynnari with Drukhari and Craft World allies. So Alex brought a list that is very unique to what we normally see out of Ynnari. There are no Shining Spears and no Dark Reapers. Instead, he went with a very flyer-heavy list, which a lot of people would say is a very dumb decision because of the boots on the ground rule. But Alex proved you can still do extremely well with a heavy flyer list. How I believe he got around this is by having a couple of cheap small infantry units that were easy to hide, and also a couple of big units of Wind Rider bikes that are super maneuverable, so they can play keep away from the enemy pretty easily. So I think his biggest fear is units that can target enemy units without line of sight because they can take out the Storm Guardians and the Rangers pretty easily, so his target priority would have been on those units first and foremost. His other biggest fear is melee units that have the fly keyword, since they can charge the flyers, so those would also be high on the list of target priority. After those units are gone, he pretty much blocks the entire enemy army with the flyers so they can't get anywhere near the hidden infantry, and the only things that can kill the flyers are shooting units. and all of those flyers are -1 to hit and can become up to -2 to hit with a stratagem, so killing them and shooting isn't necessarily an easy option. This list is actually really good in the Horde and Knight meta we are currently in. Like I said, it can move block pretty much the entire enemy army with just the flyers, and it comes with a ton of anti-infantry to deal with stuff like hordes. And as for the normal Ynnari stuff, the jet bikes are really the only good target for Word of the Phoenix and normal Ynnari shenanigans. But to be honest, I feel like a lot of the Ynnari shenanigans like Soul Burst probably didn't happen all that often, or at least not as often as normal Ynnari lists that we've seen. Overall, I think this is a great list, and again, I'm happy to see some variety in Ynnari now. And I'm especially happy to see Wind Riders making their way into a top list. Third place, Michael Snyder playing Astra Militarum with Custodes and a Castellan as allies. Michael brought a list that is very similar to Brandon's list that I previously went over, only this time around, Michael decided on using Valhallans instead. He also brought 2 shield captains in Trajan Valoris alongside the Castellan. Bringing the shield captains helps deal with things like Eldar flyers, which can get up to -3 to hit and shooting. So with them being decent in melee and having the fly keyword, it allows them to charge the flyers and deal with them that way. They also help with dealing with characters that are hiding behind a screen, since the fly keyword allows them to hop over the screen in the movement phase and then either shoot or charge the characters that were hiding behind the infantry. And they also help deal with hordes and infantry because of their hurricane bolters. Trajan Valoris is a great beat stick and pretty hard to remove, so he's great to send into enemy lines to try to destroy anything from elite infantry to tanks or even other characters. And these Custody characters have a great delivery system and screen for themselves with the 50 regular guardsmen and the 20 conscripts. And speaking of the infantry and conscripts and infantry work very well in Valhallan because of their relic that makes friendly Valhallan units within 6 inches of the bearer only lose 1 model for a failed morale test, essentially meaning that their infantry are pretty much fearless. Alongside the almost fearless infantry, they have enough company commanders and platoon commanders to give 5 orders to either the infantry squads, or some infantry and the heavy weapons teams, or even to try to attempt to give an order to the conscripts. The list also includes an astropath to buff up the conscripts and make them harder to remove, or to just buff up combined infantry squads if Michael decided to go with that route as well, since it's definitely viable due to morale not really being an issue for this army. There are also a couple of Hellhounds and some Rough Riders to fill out the fast attack choices in the brigade, and 2 heavy weapons teams with mortars and a single Wyvern that is making use of the specialist detachment, the Emperor's Wrath Artillery Company. And then to finish off the list, we have the dreaded Castellan. Like in Brandon's list, it's really all the anti-tank you'll ever need, while also being an almost unkillable unit in most matchups. Fourth place, Justin Lois playing Adeptus Mechanicus with Astra Militarum and a Knight Castellan as allies. So the main force is Admech, and is a battalion of Styges. It includes 2 Tech Priest Engineers, 3 units of Rangers, a unit of 11 Electro Priests, a unit of 6 Dragoons, and a Terrax Pattern Termite Drill. The first allied detachment is a battalion of Cadian Guard, including a company commander, a Primaris Psyker, 3 units of infantry with 1 unit including a mortar, a unit of 5 Bullgrin with 3 slab shields and 2 brute shields, and 3 heavy weapons teams all with mortars. And the final allied detachment is of course the dreaded Raven Knight Castellan. So this list is pretty cool. It utilizes the Styges stratagem on the Dragoons and the Drill that is filled with the Priests. If the army gets to go first, they use the Styges stratagem to move the Drill and the Dragoons up the board 9 inches, which means on turn 1 the Dragoons then get their regular movement and can then usually get off an easy charge. And the Priests get out of the Drill and move up and also possibly get an easy charge, as long as the opponent deployed near the front line. This strategy banks on getting first turn though, and also the opponent deploying near the front line. But it seemed to work out for Justin and his list, since he did end up getting 4th overall at the largest tournament in the world. The cool thing about this list overall though, is even if they don't get first turn, they still have a decent list. It's not entirely dependent on going first, although going first really does help. The Drill protects the Priests, and the Dragoons are -2 to hit when shot at, and the Castellan of course has its 3+ invul with the Warlord trait and rotating ion shields. The Bullgrin are pretty durable as well, and the mortar teams are most likely hidden from line of sight. So more often than not, I don't think they're going to lose anything too important if they don't go first. The list also doesn't overload the Castellan with a ton of command points like in the previous list. Sure, it gets enough to still use its stuff, but not nearly as many as the previous list gave it, because this list also wants to use some command points on the Styges stratagems and the stratagem that boosts the effectiveness of the Dragoons, which in my opinion shows that the Castellan doesn't necessarily need to be the only thing you spend command points on to make it effective. 5th place, Sean Naden playing Ynnari with Drukhari allies. So this is the list that stumped me in the most recent top 10 armies video, and apparently it stumped a bunch of top players as well because it made its way into 5th place at the largest event in the world. I'm happy to say I've looked into this list and I have a slightly better understanding, so I will try my best. So this list does a good job of dumping chaff unit after chaff unit in front of its extremely good characters in order to protect them, usually by deep striking the units. On turn 1 they can start with the rangers in the back to protect the characters from flyer or deep strike shenanigans, and the guardians out front so the characters aren't the closest enemy models to the enemy so they can't be shot at. Then on turn 2, you drop one or both of the witch blobs in to continue to screen for your amazing characters. And for the actual damage dealers of the list, well, it's pretty much Hero Hammer, and all the characters are the main source of the damage alongside the spears who do your typical Ynnari shenanigans. 6th place, William Abiles playing Tau Empire. So this list includes a battalion of Tau Sept, a battalion of Viorla Sept, and a vanguard of Tau Sept. So the battalion of Tau Sept includes a Cadre Fireblade, Commander Shadowsun, Dark Strider, 2 large units of Kroot, a unit of 12 Fire Warriors, Dayak Grek, and a unit of 12 Shield Drones. The battalion of Viorla Sept includes Unshi, a Cadre Fireblade, a unit of 10 Fire Warriors, 2 units of 5 Fire Warriors, a unit of 10 Pathfinders, and a Devilfish. And the vanguard of Tau Sept includes a commander with 4 air-bursting frag launchers and 3 Riptide battlesuits. So I assume the Kroot are used as a screen or area denial for deep strikes, or even as cheap objective holders with tons of bodies. Dark Strider and the Cadre Fireblade work really well with the unit of 12 Fire Warriors to boost them up a bit, and the Devilfish probably protects the Pathfinders to ensure that they live to see the Tau player's turn. It makes them less efficient when they hop out to shoot, but you really only need 2 or 3 of the 10 to actually hit their target, so that way you can then use the stratagem Uplink Marker Light to get the final couple of Marker Lights on that target for the +1 to hit. Shadowsun gets surrounded by the Riptides and the rest of the Tau Sept stuff in order to do War Master shenanigans with Kuyan and Manka, and the drones chill out with the Riptides as they are the only battlesuits in the list that can be targeted and shooting. Pretty straightforward for the most part, but is definitely one of the more unique Tau lists that we've seen in a while. 7th place, Joshua Death playing Chaos Demons with Thousand Sons allies. So the reason it says Josh Death in 9th on the list of placings, but he made it into the top 8 for day 3, is because the LVO had a round 6.5 that wasn't recorded but played out because there were too many players who were undefeated going into day 3 of the LVO. So they had one extra round on day 2 for these players to decide who gets into the top 8. The top 4 auto-made into the top 8, but placings 5th through 12th played out an extra round to determine the top 8. Personally, I don't know why they didn't just stick with the usual method of going with the highest battle score to determine the top 8 going into day 3, but the guys from Frontline Gaming must have thought it wasn't fair, so they had one more round for these players. With that said, Josh Death was one of the players who won the extra round and made it into the top 8. So the list he used was a battalion of Chaos Demons, a fortification detachment featuring the Nurgle Tree, and a Supreme Command detachment of Thousand Sons, and 647 reserve points for summoning in more demons. So the Supreme Command of Thousand Sons is pretty standard. It has Ahriman and 2 Demon Princes with wings. They come with some great spells and are decent in close combat. And with this list, it also opens up the option of summoning in Tzeentch demons with reinforcement points. The Chaos Demon detachment features an Infernal Enraptress, a Sloppity Bilepiper, a Spoilpox Scrivener, a unit of 30 Plague Bearers, and 4 units of Nurglings. And then of course we have the Nurgle Tree. So personally, I've never liked summoning because I found that the restrictions are a bit too much, at least with the list that I've built. You have to have your character remain stationary in order to summon, which most of the time means they aren't going to get in range of charging stuff, which is what Chaos characters excel at for the most part, especially Demon Princes. And you have to summon the demons within 12 inches of the character and more than 9 inches away from enemy models. So to me, I always felt it was more efficient to just include those demons in your list because you get more command points for filling out battalions with them, and you also get to deep strike them with a stratagem wherever you want that's more than 9 inches away from enemy models, so you aren't limited to deep striking near your characters. With that said though, the greatest benefit for summoning is it's almost like a sideboard in Magic the Gathering, meaning you can bring in whatever units you think will best fit the matchup. And that's actually a pretty big benefit when you think about it. But another problem with that is reliably getting the summoning rolls that you need in order to get the units you want or the size of the units that you want. So obviously Josh made it work, otherwise he wouldn't have done so well at this event, so I guess I have to rethink my thoughts on the summoning mechanic, especially with the new summoning support that is due to release in a new box set that was previewed at the LVO. 8th place, and I'm probably going to butcher this name, so if I do, I apologize, Matthew Ailey playing Ynnari with Drukhari and Craftworld allies. So the final list of the top 8 is another Ynnari list that is pretty close to the Ynnari list we've seen for a while now with a few variations. It includes a battalion of Ynnari, a spearhead of Drukhari, and an air wing detachment of Craftworlds. The battalion of Ynnari includes Eldrad, Ivrain, a unit of Rangers, 2 units of Dire Avengers, a unit of 10 Dark Reapers, and a Wave Serpent. The spearhead of Drukhari is Blackheart and includes an Archon, 3 Ravagers with Dizzy Cannons, and a Razorwing Jet Fighter. And to finish off the list, we have a Craftworld air wing detachment featuring 3 Crimson Hunter Exarchs. So like the previous Ynnari list we went over, this list features a few flyers which are great for move blocking ground units like Knights. They are also pretty hard to deal with because they are -1 from hard to hit, but also gain an extra -1 to hit for -2 in total because of the Allay Talk trait. Then there's also a stratagem that can boost them up to another -1 to hit. The Ravagers are really great at dealing with pretty much anything. They come with 9 shots each at strength 5, -3 AP, and 2 damage a pop. So they can deal with stuff like jet bikes, regular bikes, Primaris, infantry with feel no pain rolls, and even help out against stuff like vehicles when you include the spell Doom in the mix. I also assume they gave the Blackheart relic to the Archon so he could allow the Dizzy Cannons to not only reroll 1s, but also 1s to wound as well, which works out great for them since they wound most of their preferred targets on 3+, so rerolling that 1s really benefits them. And then with the regular Ynnari stuff, nothing too fancy here as we've really seen it all before. Eldrad is amazing for Psychic, Ivrain brings access to the Ynnari spells, Rangers can sit back on backfield objectives, Dire Avengers are now the cheapest troop choice for an easy battalion, and the Dark Reapers massacre things by shooting twice with the spell Word of the Phoenix, and then getting super buffed by the Eldar spells to keep them alive as long as possible. And the Wave Serpent is there to lower the drops and keep the Dark Reapers and characters safe on turn 1 in case the opponent happens to take first turn. And that's pretty much it. So overall, we have 3 Ynnari armies in the top 8, 2 Astra Militarum armies in the top 8, 1 Adeptus Mech army in the top 8, 1 Chaos army in the top 8, and 1 Tau army in the top 8. So when it comes to army diversity, I can admit it doesn't seem like much, because we have 3 Imperium armies and 3 Ynnari armies to make up most of the top 8. But when it comes down to the lists themselves, I actually feel they are pretty diverse other than sharing a few staple units between them. Personally, I still think the top 8 isn't too bad and is still relatively diverse when you consider past editions of Warhammer 40k. And if we were to learn any lessons from this top 8, I believe those main points would be that Ynnari might still be a little too strong even after the nerfs they've received, and the Knight Castellan might still be a little too strong even after the nerfs it's also received. Those are just my takeaways from this top 8, but I'm sure other people might interpret it a bit differently. So if you do, I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comments. I know some people might also claim that soup is a problem, and to be honest it might be. But soup is also what helps some armies stay relevant in the first place, so I feel like that's a hard tightrope to cross. But with this top 8, I am interested to see what the next big FAQ brings along and how it changes the meta. It should be out sometime next month, and I'm very curious to see what it brings for us. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more Warhammer 40k content, like my upcoming interview with the winner of the LVO, Brandon Grant, and also other videos like my upcoming coverage of the new Genestealer Call Codex, the new Assassin rules, and even the new Beta Custodes rules. And if you enjoy what I do here on the channel and would like to help support me and the channel to allow me to continue putting out great content like this, then consider subscribing on Patreon. For only $5 a month, you can get access to the Almost Pro Gaming Discord server and a community that is filled with great people who love Warhammer just as much as you do. We have great conversations about 40k and even help each other out with list building and other aspects of the game. I have other tiers on Patreon you can sign up for as well that include everything previously mentioned, but also other things like personalized coaching or even getting to request a topic for a video. So if any of those things interest you, or you just want to help support the channel, then feel free to check me out on Patreon and consider subscribing. Also, thanks to all my current patrons. Without you guys and gals, this channel wouldn't be possible. So thank you all very much, and I love you all. Anyways, thanks for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one. Happy wargaming.